Hey everyone, Tina here. I'm recording inside the Shia Shack. I recognize that it's a bit echoey in here. I do have a microphone, and I just wanted to say that if it's still a little echoey, I apologize for that, and I hope it doesn't distract. I hope it's not too distracting from this message. I have been kind of radio silent for the past few months. At the beginning of this year, beginning of everything, everything shutting down, I had done a couple of videos that I had felt called to do and share the information on the metaphor of 2020, how we are coming into clearer vision, and then I also did one on conformity consciousness and unity consciousness, and then I just stopped, and I was going through, like many of us, going through really, really deep processing with this. And experiencing so many different dimensions of my being that I just wasn't really able to, I didn't feel very comfortable maintaining a focus to be able to do a video. I had tried to do videos, I had tried to write, it just wasn't, I just wasn't quite aligned with it. So hopefully this comes out clearly today. This is sort of a two-part video. I'm going to touch again on sort of a different perspective of the shift that we're experiencing right now, that we are shifting from conformity consciousness to unity consciousness. And then the second part of this is I'm going to discuss the tension that we're feeling right now globally, and how those two are connected. So many of us, we understand to some degree that we are going through a shift. Many of us understand that we are experiencing a shift in our consciousness. Some of us use the language of that we are evolving or shifting from 3D to 5D. We are experiencing just expansion in every way. We are becoming multidimensional, shifting from linear perception of ourselves. Whatever your language is, it's all totally valid and applicable. So just pick one. I'm just going to refer to as shift. Maybe I might intertwine some other languages in there. So we are shifting from a very long, old cycle of conformity consciousness, conformity mindset, and we are shifting into unity consciousness. Now, those of us who have been on a path of spiritual awakening, again, more language, replace it with whatever maybe better resonates for you. But anybody who's been on that path of awakening has an understanding that we are becoming more unified. So let's talk about what that actually looks like and means. So when I was writing my dissertation, my doctoral dissertation, a few years ago, excuse me, this concept had come up, and I found it quite fascinating, although I didn't totally understand it at the time. So, and I'm talking like this was shown to me intuitively. So I was given mantras to help understand the difference between the two. So I'll share them again here. So the mantra for conformity consciousness is, oh no, my battery's dying. Hopefully we get this out. So the mantra for conformity consciousness is, I'm right, you're wrong. If you don't agree with me, we can't get along. So we are seeing that has come up. And this is a good thing. It's very uncomfortable, but it's a good thing, and I'll get to that in a moment. Unity consciousness, the mantra is, I live in loving acceptance of all that is. So that's really, truly living in acceptance of our diversity. So now I'm just going to kind of go into like the tension of what we're experiencing right now, because the tension is like a rubber band. When we stretch it, what eventually happens is it snaps. Something's got to give. That tension cannot maintain itself, sustain itself for long without something giving. So this idea is reflective of the polarity that we have been living in. The left, the right, the wrong, the up, the down, the us and them, that whole idea. So we are seeing that being played out right now in very obvious, very extreme ways. And so we call it division. So the thing about, I'm going to just say team A, team B, it doesn't really matter, team orange, team apple. Meaning that there's no one ahead of the other, okay? So this team over here has very strong beliefs and very strong views and perspectives and conviction about what they see, even though there's some variations within that, okay? That's like a sub-collective. And then over here, the other team, same thing. We're all looking at the same thing through different perspectives. We seem to have two main camps or teams that we have developed where it's like this team and this team both are looking at each other saying, I'm right, you're wrong. If you don't agree with me, we can't get along. Somewhere in the middle of the spectrum, and let me just say this too, all perspectives from both sides, even though there's many more than just these two sides, all perspectives are valid. And what do I mean by that? I mean that they're if it's real for me, or if it's real for you, who am I to say that you're wrong? I don't know, because I don't really know what you're seeing. I don't know what makes sense to you. I understand. Now I'm just going to come off of this for a second. How this all works, when we perceive something, we are looking at it through our belief structures and through the filters of our mind. So we are all going to see things slightly differently because of our experiences, because of our conditioning. We may hold very strong beliefs around right and wrong, and we are going to create division or, choose teams because of that. But there's something beyond this that we need to start looking into, and we can look at it from a linear perspective. This is not totally accurate, but I'll just use it because it's an easy teaching tool. So if we look at this as a line, like as a spectrum, and these are the two polar opposites, there's all this range in between here that is valid, but in reality, it's multidimensional. So diversity goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. So there's no one way to be in relation with something. There's many topics on the table right now. There's COVID, there's politics, there's economy, there is education, there is health, right? How to handle something. There's no one way for something to be resolved. There are many ways for it to be resolved. Taking cancer as an example, so that we have an idea that many of us have one idea of how to treat cancer, which is through chemotherapy and radiation and possibly surgery. That's a valid choice. But there are many other options, and many other times, there's been many, many times where people have not taken that path. They've chosen something differently, and they have recovered, or they've gone into remission or a spontaneous remission. So when we take all of these elements into consideration and apply them to what we're experiencing right now, we can see that there's no one way, even though we want to hold so very near and dear to our own convictions, our own truths. There is much more for us to consider. It doesn't mean you have to agree with it, though. So here's my invitation with this whole presentation. I want to go really much deeper into this. I think my battery's probably going to die fairly quickly. I apologize. But the invitation is, if you find yourself being in one camp or this other camp, try listening to each other. There is so much tension here that we cannot move beyond until something eases up. We don't need to snap. We don't have to go through that. So what if we just start listening to each other? What if we start taking an interest in something different from what we see? What if there's something for us to learn? That doesn't mean you have to agree or adapt with those ideas. That's not what acceptance is. It's recognizing that there is no separation. We're trying so hard to push these aspects of ourself in away from ourselves, which is really what we're trying to push other people's ideas away from our own ideas. But it doesn't go anywhere because it's all connected. It's all one, and there's no getting away from that. There just isn't. So we're at this time where it's okay, that doesn't work anymore. We've been living that for a long, long time. That conformity consciousness has been around for thousands of years. And how that comes about, it doesn't really matter. If there's anybody to blame or anything, that might be another video. I'm not going to get into that because that's quite disempowering. But we can get into ourselves right now and realize, where is my tension? What are my beliefs? What am I afraid of? When I hear somebody else talk, do I feel challenged? Do I feel threatened? Why? Is it that they actually hold something that is a threat to me? How? How could that be? Nothing can affect me, you, unless I agree for it to. So when I react to something, I'm bringing it into my awareness and I'm holding that energy because I'm trying to push it away, but it just slingshots right back to me. So then what are our options? Again, coming back to the spectrum, there's a whole spectrum of options. Always options, always options. When we find ourselves in places of tension, discomfort, suffering, struggle, take that deep breath in, come back to your center and realize and ask yourself, where is this tension arising from within me? What am I believing? What do I think I need to have happen so that I can feel better? Do I need them to change their mind, to adapt to my views, my beliefs, so that I can feel better and more comfortable in my own world? Something to explore. Because also going back to the idea of listening to each other and just taking an interest, there's something so powerful in the compassion of that, because everybody has their views. This is never going to change. We are never going to conform to a singular idea, ever. Higher consciousness does not equate conformity. Higher consciousness, at higher levels of consciousness, we understand that we have choice. We are always at choice. I understand that there are options for me to choose from. I can choose this, I can choose that, I can choose that belief, that idea, and I can adapt that, I can make it my own. But at higher levels of consciousness, we understand there's no use. There's no good use of that energy to choose things that are restrictive, that create that tension within us. Because if I'm pushing you away, I'm only pushing against myself. There's so much potential for our shift right now through compassion, through acceptance. And acceptance does not mean agree, condone, get on board with. None of that. You are free to see yourself, each other, and the world how you choose, but the same goes for everybody. So then, if that's true, then what? What are we left with? Now what do we have? There are a lot of narratives that are floating around that definitely hold various intentions, but it's up to us. It's up to each one of us to decide who we want to be in relation to all this. And to explore further. We might think that we're being compassionate, but if we're pushing against somebody else, it's a very shallow level of compassion, and there's so much more for us to experience. We can all get along in diversity. And I'm talking about different thoughts, different beliefs, different expressions, different choices in ways of being. Not the ways that we see diversity that are just kind of more surface, skin color and that type of thing. I'm talking all of it. Cultures, religion, spirituality, beliefs, preferences of all of it. There's room for all of us. There's physics to our consciousness, and then when we let go of this tension, everything around us starts to reflect that back to us. That's just how it works. We believe and then we see, not the other way around. So I'm just going to leave it at that for now because I'm super hyper aware that my battery's about to die. I hope this is bringing some peace to you. It may trigger something in you, and that's great too. I invite you to explore that. I invite you to explore something other than pushing against it. If this doesn't land, if this doesn't resonate, just leave it. Just leave it. All that other stuff that doesn't land and resonate for you, just leave it. There's room for it all. Okay. So much love to you. Know your power. This is happening. We are evolving. It may not seem that way. It may seem that we're going backwards, but we're evolving. Okay. Big love. Take care.